Hello everyone. In this session, we are going to learn how do we write our first C program. We'll be writing this particular program on Linux platform. In order to do this, we'll try to see what are the various things what we're going to cover in this particular session. First thing, we're going to learn some of the basic Linux commands required to compile the programs, run the programs, and the other basic things. We'll also learn how do we work with the terminal and then the editor, gedit. We'll learn how to compile the C program as well as execute a C program. We'll learn the basic things of C like data types in C, the rules for naming an identifier, the keywords, and the format specifiers. So these are the things what we're going to learn in this particular session. So first, let's jump into writing the program. Now, once you log into Linux platform, this is what the screen you see. Now, to start a terminal, just click here, just write TER. You should get the terminal here. Click on this terminal. So this is your terminal. Let me just increase the font size. Now this terminal is similar to your command prompt, what you use it on Windows. And we also call it as shell. From this particular prompt, we can execute any Linux commands. Some of the basic commands which are required to work with this session is pwd. The pwd command stands for present working directory. So I want to know I'm in which particular directory, which is my current folder. So I can just use pwd. When I just execute this command, I am getting that home/varsity. You might get it a little bit different depending upon what is your login, right? If you're logged in as Sikandar, then probably this will be Sikandar. If you're logged in with Akash, then this part will be Akash. So this will be generally whatever the login name what you've used, but this is again generally home, right? Okay. The next Linux command which is required is ls. The ls basically lists the files present in that specified directory. A simple ls command, this is going to list all the files in this particular directory which is available. Right? So you want to clear the screen, we can use the command clear. Now we have seen that a lot of files, and I don't want to create new files into the same place. I'd like to create a separate folder where I could keep all my programs. So if I want to create a separate folder or directory, then we have a command called as mkdir. Mkdir stands for make directory. It is used to create a new directory or also called as a folder. The syntax for that is mkdir followed by the directory name. Let me just give the directory name as C programs. This is a directory where we will be placing all the programs what we do in this session. Now once we create a directory, now we need to jump into the directory. In order to jump into the directory, we use cd. cd stands for change directory. Right? Now if I look into pwd, now I'm not inside varsity, but I'm inside C programs, which is inside varsity and which is inside home. And this is a newly created directory. So if I type ls, there won't be any files because it's just a newly created directory. Right? Now we will learn how do we write programs. In order to write programs, we require some editor. We have various editors. One of the editor is called as VI, or we call it as Vim, right? VI editor. If you want to work with Vim, then again you need to learn few more commands to work with Vim. Instead of that, we'll be using another editor called as gedit. Working with this tool is quite easy. It is similar to working with your notepad. So we'll try to launch the gedit application. In order to launch the gedit application, again go back to the main search, just write gedit. Right, when you write gedit, you'll be getting it as text editor. Click out there. Remember, your notepad is also a text editor. Very similar to that, we have gedit. Now this is similar to your notepad. You can write anything, you can cut, paste, everything. Now first let us try to save this file. While saving this file, what is the directory we created? C programs. Now specify the file name. Let us say this is my first program, so I'd like to write first.c. The file name can be anything. Since this is my first file, I'm just creating it as first, but it can be anything. But make sure that the extension is .c. That is very important. All C files should have an extension .c. Save this. Now start writing the program. Hash include stdio.h. Then there's a very simple code I'm writing. I'd like to print a message out here. Hello, welcome to C programming classes. Right. This is a classic first program what we write in almost every programming language, called as Hello World. Save this. We can go to file and then we can just use save, or we can also use a shortcut Control S. Once you have saved it, we need to execute this program. Now once you write a C program, execute the next job is you have to convert that to go back to the program into an executable file. Before we learn how do we call it as compilation process, please make a note. The detailed compilation process is what we just used. But the basic compilation process, what we have it is, we have the source code. We have the source code. We pass the source code to the compiler. The compiler accepts the source code, converts this particular code, which is the human commands what we used, into a form which is understood by the machine. We call that as an executable code. And the commands which is required to compile a program is gcc filename.c, and to execute we use /a.out. Let's try doing this. Okay. Now what is the file name what we created? First.c. Right? Let us observe. Okay, is this file present or not? File is present. There's one more command I would like to talk, which is cat. Cat is just used to display the contents of the file. Cat first.c. Yes, the file contains that information whatever you wrote. Let me just again use a clear. How do I compile? GCC, we should specify file name. What is the file name? Don't say filename, right? Instead, whatever the name you gave, first.c. Compile it. If there is any errors, it's going to explicitly mention it, but our program never had any errors, so it came back to the prompt. Now I want to execute the program, right? Now it has already created an executable file. Let us try to look into what is the executable file name, what is created. What do you observe here? There is another file which is created, a.out. This is the executable file which is created. I want to execute this, /a.out. Done, guys? So we have executed a first program. Now we would like to learn if I have to do some kind of calculations. In that case, the first thing what I need to learn is how do I store some information, right? Without storing the information, you will not be able to do any kind of calculations. So we will try to learn if I have to instruct the machine to reserve some memory so that I can store some information in that. So we need to know how to instruct, right? Now the general thing is we basically create a variable. Okay, we basically create a variable, and when you create a variable, we are basically telling that I would like to reserve some memory wherein I want to store some information. and later on I want to do processing on that particular information, right? The general syntax of that is we have a data type, then we have the name of the variable, then if you want you can initialize like what information you want to place in this particular block of memory, right? Now what is this data type? So let us try to look into what is the data type and what are the various data types available. Data type is a classification or category of various types of data that states the possible values that can be taken, how they are stored, and what operations can be performed on them. What does it say? It tells you the kind of values we can store in that. It also tells about how they are stored and then what kind of operations can be done on that. If you want to classify the data types, we have two types of data type. One is called as the primitive types, also called as the basic data types. The other ones are called as derived data type. So in this session, we'll only look into the basic or the primitive data types. C language provides 4 data types: character, int, float, and double. The character is basically used in case if you want to store some characters, some alphabets. If you want to store some numeric value, we use integer. How do we represent integer? Int. If you want to use some numeric values but with fractional part, then we have 2 data types for that, float and double. Both can take up fractional values. Only thing is the amount of values what you can represent is a bit larger in double when compared to float, right? So here we just saw that characters are used to store a character information, int for numeric values without any fractions, float and double for fractions. In addition to specifying the type of information which can be stored, it also tells me how much amount of memory it will be reserved. So each data type specifies a particular block of memory. Like character specifies 1 byte. Integer basically specifies 4 bytes, but it is not 4 in all the machines. In some machines it could be 2 bytes, or some machines it could be 4 bytes. The minimum size of an integer is 2 bytes. On 16-bit machines it is again 2 bytes. On any 32-bit machine or a 64-bit machine, it is 4 byte. So the size of an integer depends upon either you're working on a 16-bit or a 32-bit or a 64-bit. Remember, the smallest size of an integer is 2 bytes and the largest size is 4. So either you work on 32-bit or 64-bit machines, the size of an integer is 4. If you work on 8-bit or 16-bit, it is 2. The float occupies 4 memory and double occupies 8 bytes of memory. Now, if I just declare a variable, example, let us say int x equal to 4. Here, int is a data type, right? Since we have mentioned int, so how many blocks of memory it will reserve? 4 bytes of memory it will reserve, right? Wherein x is the name given to that location, and every location has an address. We can call it as location, or you can also call it as the address. This 2000 is just an imaginary address I've just specified for this. I hope till here it's clear, right? Now whenever you want to give a name for the variable, there are some rules to be followed. The rules to be followed is a variable name can have any legal characters between A to Z, either uppercase or lowercase. It can also contain digit and an underscore. It cannot contain any other special symbols, like for example modulus or plus, minus, space, star. All these things are not valid symbols while declaring the variable names. C is a case sensitive programming language. I can create a variable by name lowercase a. I can also create a variable by name uppercase a. But if I create a variable by name lowercase a, I have to refer to it only by using lowercase a in the later part of the program. But if I mention it as uppercase a, I need to always use uppercase a. It cannot begin with a digit. The first character of an identifier should either be an alphabet or it can be an underscore, but we generally don't use an underscore to begin with. We generally use an alphabet. And there's some special words which are reserved called as keywords. We cannot use keywords as your variable names. The maximum length of the characters, the number of characters what you have in the variable name, is 31. Some compilers might support more than 31. To be on a safer side and to write a code which is portable across various platforms, it is better that you restrict the size to 31. Right? Now, as I said, keywords are basically reserved words. They are special meanings. Like when you have some names to be given for a kid, you don't give the kid as table as a name or a chair as a name, because table represents some specific thing, chair represents some specific thing. So similarly, there are some words which has special meanings in C language, we call it as keywords, and we cannot use those as your variable names. There are 32 standard keywords present in C. So these are the list of keywords. There is no need for you to by heart these keywords. Generally, when you write a program on any of the editors, there will be syntax highlighting. So the keywords will be in some specific color. So from that itself, we can get to know that it's a keyword. And over a duration of the course, you will come across the usage of various keywords. Yes, these are standard 32 keywords. Some compilers might support some additional keywords. So for that, you need to look into the compiler specific documentations. Right? Now, let us try to declare the variable, and then we'll try to, assign the value, and then we'll try to print this information. Okay, I'd like to do the changes here. I'd like to create a variable. I want to store numeric information, so I'll use integer. I just write marks. Marks will be numeric value. You want to assign some value, right? I want to print this value. Again, if you want to print, we use printf. Now, if I just try to print marks here, what do you think will be the output? The output will be 45, or will it print marks? Let's try to look into this. Let's try to compile your program. Again, we have to repeat those two steps. Compile your program and then run the program. What you saw? It is marks. Now, I don't want to print marks on the screen. I want to print the value of this variable marks. So in that case, you need to use something called as format specifier. Within this double quotes, here we need to specify the format specifiers. So we'll try to look into what are the format specifiers available in C, for which data type, what format specifiers to be used. Each data type has a format specifier. Format specifier is basically a sequence of characters which you need to pass it whenever you're using printf or a scanf. For character, the format specifier is %C. For integer, the format specifier is %D. F for float, LF for double. Right? It's quite easy to remember. C for character, F for float. Why is it D for integers? Because D stands for decimal. Can we use any other formats other than decimal? Yes, but we'll look at it in later session. And for double, it is LF. So let us try to use the format specifier and complete a program. Okay, I want to print integer value, I need to use %d. Or if you want to print marks equal to, this part will be printed as it is, marks equal to. Here you want to print the value of the variable, you have to use the format specifiers. And then if you want to print a new line, it's better to print a new line here. Then you need to use a comma operator here. Remember, the comma operator appears after the double quote ending. Then here just mention the name, right? We'll try to compile this particular program, but please make sure that you try to save it before you jump into compilation. Compiled, executed, everything done. So in this session, we learned how do we write a first program wherein we can just print hello world, as well as we learned how do we store some numeric value into a variable and then print it. Your task will be to store some fractional values and then print it, store some characters and then print it. Thank you.